this. Okay.
Don't do it again.
All right, it is 11:31, and we will call this unusual and probably first joint City Council and Economic Improvement Corporation workshop. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate it very, very much. I don't think we have done this before, and I think it's a great idea.
So I am going to call the EIC meeting to order. And for EIC members, we did have a special called meeting last week, but we're unable to make that happen. That big part of that meeting was to inform you kind of and give you all a heads up about this meeting that we were going to have today, just because it is new and different. So that was really the main purpose of that meeting last week. I heard scuttlebutt that there were some things, nefarious things trying to happen, but to let all the public know, we had a meeting which was posted. We did not have a quorum, and so we're meeting today as a group to discuss the items that the mayor will lead us through.
And just a little bit for our ground rules. I am hoping, and have talked with Kim, we're hoping we'll be done by 1:30. That's really kind of our goal. 2 hours, we should be able to accomplish what we need to accomplish in that time. And I know we have a number of people from the community that are going to speak with us. So I think we'll go ahead and do our public comments first, and then we'll turn it over to staff to help move us down the road. And as I said, I think this is just a great idea for us to do this. We're talking about big dollars, we all know that, and things that are vital to our quality of life, and we've got to make some decisions. So with that, let's start with Shelley. Do you have some signer-uppers?
Yes, ma'am. We have 3 for item 1 and 3 for item 2, so we'll just go ahead and join those, the 2 after 1.
Okay, so you want to we'll go ahead and get started?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, we will do that then. Michael, I think we are probably turning this over to you first.
I'll start with that.
Okay.
Sure. Well, I want to thank all of y'all for taking time out of your day. I know you have a lot going on, and we've certainly been asking a lot of you this month especially. So I was excited when we started talking about the concept of these capital improvements to a lot of our facilities, and the idea that sprung from it was, is there a way that we could fund all of those collectively as opposed to coming in individually and seeing what kind of annual debt service that would look like. One of the other things that I noticed in my years that y'all haven't collectively met to kind of discuss the visions and wishes, and I thought that was an important part of that, so y'all could have that discussion together. So I think what we really want to focus on primarily, beginning and actually we'll get into the weeds of it, are projects that we know that have critical infrastructure needs, that are heavy capital projects, and they're running the risk of going into some, failure. So we know that these are quality of life amenities that the community avails themselves to. But we also know that there are a whole list of projects that are out there. We wanted to see if we could take a bite at that apple that was fairly substantial and see what you all thought. So our plan was to start off with Ashley going over Parks and Rec project recommendations, and then have Julie and her team discuss the financing, give options for this bond issuance, this value, this value, this value, and then have y'all discuss how far you want to go, if you want to go, do that at all. And if there are dollars above that which we assume on these first 3 projects, what does that priority list look like for y'all? So we have our project lists, we have our priority list from our Parks and Rec board, and then we have some community asset projects that are out there, that we'll talk about as well. And so after that, I think my vision, my hope for next steps would be, if this is amenable to both bodies, we would take something back to City Council on the 22nd to then formally ask EIC in September to consider for public.
I think
Any questions?
it's important to know we will not be making any decisions today. This is gathering information and for us to process, and but no actual decisions will come from either body today.
So if you don't have any questions, I will turn it over to Ashley and get started on the presentation on the Parks and Rec quality of life projects.
Thank you. Format, Mayor, would you prefer me speak from the table or from the podium?
I think maybe from the podium, if you don't mind. I think we'll,
Did you want the public to speak first?
Oh,
that's probably a good idea. Thank you. Okay, okay, let's do that, Shelley, thank you.
Lauren Porter.
Hi there. Sorry. Is this working? I don't even know if we need it. I don't think it's working, but we probably don't even need it. My name is Lauren Porter. I am here on behalf of the C3 swim team. And for those of you that don't know the team, it's our local competitive swim team led by Coach Chris Cawthon. Later, I'll let the athletes that are here with us stand up today. And I do represent the nonprofit board that supports the swim team. We are thrilled to be a part of this conversation. We appreciate you allowing us the opportunity to be here and to impact the future of the Olympic Pool project. On behalf of the many families that are positively impacted by swim in our community, and in a hopeful cooperative partnership with bodies such as KISD and Schreiner University, we are here to advocate strongly for this project. Swimming is a lifelong sport like tennis or golf, and the opportunity to have continuity of programming right here in Kerrville from age 5 all the way through high school and then on to a team at Schreiner is an incredible opportunity for us. And our 50 to 70 year-round competitive swimmers that are part of the team, they dedicate themselves and participate in local, regional, state, and even national swim competitions. A few of the athletes and their families are here today, and I would like to just give those athletes a quick minute to stand up. And guys, can y'all stand up? And they've brought a pile of their medals that they've accumulated over the past few years. And I think I can speak for the families here and say what an incredible impact that C3 has had. C3 stands for courage, character, and commitment, and the team really embodies all of that in their dedication to the sport. And that's why we're fully behind the proposal to transform the Olympic pool into a year-round competitive pool. Our team currently faces a logistical hurdle training across multiple pools. The setup doesn't just limit our progress, but it divides our unity. Transforming the Olympic pool could change this. By providing a central training hub, we could unify our efforts and training strategies, grow the team, and create a more cohesive and effective team. Beyond training, we're excited about the potential of hosting swim meets right here in Kerrville. A revamped pool facility would draw regional competitions, but it's not just about the excitement. These events bring economic benefits. When Kerrville hosts these meets, families and participants pour into the community, supporting local businesses, hotels, and restaurants. A feasibility study that we had commissioned last year recognized a potential for over $300,000 in community economic impact for a single USA Swim invitational style meet. In essence, this project is a win-win, a way to bolster our community, our team's growth, strengthen Kerrville's economy, and showcase our community's commitment to quality of life projects. The vision to enhance the Olympic pool aligns with our goals and yours, and we're here to lend our full support throughout the project. Thank you for your time and consideration. The team eagerly anticipates the positive changes that this project can bring to Kerrville's future, our team's future, and young athletes' futures. If there's anything we can do to help, we are here with you throughout this decision process and happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions of Lauren particularly? Okay,
Okay, my name's Len Guerrero.
the front mic is working,
Is it?
so, yes.
Okay. I'm 307 Lakewood Drive, a Kerrville resident, and I'm also on the board of the Upper Guadalupe River Center Foundation. And I'm here today to talk about Nimitz Lake a little bit. We have a town lake of our own here in Kerrville. And I feel, since we're talking about economic improvement, one of the greatest assets we have to generate economic improvement is to open up that town lake. And we're involved in a project to build a facility on Town Lake, a river center. But below our facility is the city park, Granger McDonald Park, which was just donated. One of the things that we could do to really ignite that lake is to create a ramp for the triathlon and for people to use the lake to give them access. If you're familiar with Shriner Park Lake, one of the things that we're missing on Nimitz Lake is just simply the access. And if we could build a ramp and parking and some way to provide that access to people, we could open up the lake to events and also protect and secure our triathlon. Our triathlon is the second largest triathlon in the state of Texas. It generates almost $2 million a year in economic impact. There are similar triathlons. Austin is the largest, but it is probably our largest economic impact activity here in Kerrville. The current triathlon, if you're not familiar with it, they start off with a swim, and that's over on the other side of the lake by Chili's and Happy State Bank. That land that they use currently is for sale. So we have potentially a risk of losing that triathlon entry and exit point into the lake across the river. By building this ramp and bulkhead and parking, we can secure and promote the triathlon. The other thing that we're suggesting that you do with the park is to add handicap accessible piers and provide access to seniors who may be disabled, and also handicapped persons who don't have the ability to get into the river. So, we hope that you consider the lake a valuable asset and look towards economic improvement on Nimitz Lake using what you have.
And you have given some numbers to us, right?
I have.
I believe, yes, okay. All right. Any questions for Mr. Guerrero? You guys are a quiet bunch this morning. Okay, thank you.
Kent McKinney, I'm 3420 Trace Circle. I'm also on the board of the Upper Guadalupe River Center. And here to mostly speak about that, but to say that I think it's great that we're giving some consideration to the quality of life issues. I think sometimes in the past we've kind of overlooked that or poo-pooed, what kind of impact it can have. But once we've seen the river trail and seen it in use, I think the whole community values it much more than they realized they would have in the beginning. And as regard the Nimitz Lake, it's, the river and the lake are really valuable assets to the community. And tie in that Granger McDonald Park into a bigger facility with the river center that we've had envisioned in our minds could be a really big draw, as Lane was explaining. So I just want to say that I think it's a great opportunity to step forward and do something now, and also that quality of life. We're looking for more employees all the time, and for the community to grow, and it makes it Kerrville a very attractive place to have these kinds of things going on. So, I encourage you to do all you can. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. McKinney? Yes, we do have one.
Kent, do you or Lang know how long the city's had that property for the Granger McDonald Park?
It's only been maybe 2 years. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Oh, yes.
The city's held the property for 5 years.
5 years.
All right, thank you.
Charlie McIlvain?
Good morning, Mayor Eichner, council, and EIC members. I am Charlie McIlvain at 128 Mesa del Sol here in Kerrville. I'm on the board of the Upper Guadalupe River Corporation, but I'm not here representing them today as much as encouraging the council to look at funding $2.2 million in improvements for the Granger McDonald Park. It's an important component for our community, and there's very little park activities at that end of the community, and especially there on Nimitz Lake. So again, I want to encourage you to pursue that opportunity. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. McCormick? Mr. McCormick, Mr. The other Charlie, yes. All right.
Julie Davis?
I see a theme approaching. I'm Julie Davis with the Convention and Visitors Bureau, but also on the Upper Guadalupe River Center board. And I just would like to ask your support of the improvements to Granger McDonald Park. Nimitz Lake is an underutilized asset in our community. The river's in many ways underutilized and is very valuable to the citizens and visitors alike. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Any questions for her? All right.
Barbara Ferguson?
I'm Barbara Duell Ferguson. I live here in Kerrville. I came today because I know this is a meeting to discuss the indebtedness that will come with the selling of bonds to utilize these tax dollars. And I would like to say that I support all the projects that have been talked about here so far. They're worthy. They're good quality of life projects. However, our quality of life depends heavily on our water availability. Right now, the condition of our river is not good. Our ability to draw people will be lost if we don't have water in the river. I would like to encourage you all to consider not the quality of life projects, but the actual infrastructure projects that EIC can also underwrite. We need to start looking for additional water sources. 2 weeks ago, the city said they had to take off one of our wells from the calculations of our available water because it did not come in as everyone had hoped. That was a worthy project. It was the right thing for them to do a few years ago when they drilled it. Unfortunately, it didn't come through. We have a water issue. The headwaters last week put us in stage 4. The city's ignoring that. They have not announced it. We are in stage 4 now, folks.
That is incorrect.
That is correct. I've talked with TCEQ. You were there at the meeting. It happened. So I think until the public realizes what our water situation is, we cannot draw any banked water that we have put in with our ARC wells if it isn't there. Right now, the Trinity is in the extreme drought levels. That's where it is. So I would like to encourage EIC to consider what they can do to assist the city in addressing our water issues so that we can go forward successfully, so that we can continue to lure people here. But without water, all of this is dead, all of it. Thank you very much for your time.
Did you have a question?
I have a question for staff as someone that was part of the Ellenberger exploration and now the 534 well. Is it true that the well did not come in as expected? Stuart, I listened to your water presentation. I listened to your water presentation, and you did a really good job of explaining why in times of drought both wells cannot function at the same time, but that is not the same thing as saying that the well did not come in as expected. Is that correct? For public clarification.
Yeah, so there was a couple things there that weren't haven't been considered by council yet. They're going to be on our next council agenda that haven't come to full fruition. To address the well itself, the well did come in as expected. However, during times of drought, we are experiencing that it has got a cone of depression that's bigger than we anticipated. There was no way to anticipate that, as we are in a significant drought period that we haven't had in the last 20 or 30 years. So yes, the well did come in. We do have an ASR well, but we, as far as the city being into stage 4, the city has not moved to stage 4 yet. It's something on our agenda to talk about next Tuesday night. But officially right now, because there is some miscommunication out in the press that we have automatically moved into stage 4, and that is not the case. We have not done that yet.
Thank you, Stuart. And we'll try to limit this to what we're here for, and that's looking at our quality of life projects. And those are the forefront of what we're talking about right now. So, anyone else?
Maggie McGee?
I'm Maggie McGee. I live at 2729 Indian Wells Drive in Kerrville, and I'm here to speak in favor of the sales tax revenue bonds. As a former two-term EIC member, I know that you have the authority, EIC, to use these bonds. They've been used successfully in the past. These particular bonds do not affect tax rate or property tax. They are not general obligation bonds. They are use of our sales tax revenues for a forward bonding capacity. My husband and I have worked in various states and many cities in economic and tourism development. We have used these bonds and other types of bonds successfully for years for recreational purposes and quality of life issues. It is an effective, efficient way to do the work we need to do. And it will not affect the taxes, despite what you may hear. And it will, more importantly to me, it will allow this city to fulfill the promise of the 2050 plan. We need the money, we need the revenue, and I want to give kudos once again to our finance staff and our wonderful city staff for their stewardship of our funds. We have an excellent bond rating. We continue to get national awards for their work. I'm very proud of all of them, including Ashley and all the work she does. So I say let's get behind them and use those bonds.
Thank you.
That's the end of our citizen speakers, Madam Mayor.
Okay, very good. All right, Ashley, we will turn it over to you.
Presentation pulled up. Well, good morning, Mayor, members of the EIC. We also have members of our Parks and Recreation Advisory Board in attendance today. So if you're a member of our Parks Board, would you please just wave your hand in the air so show support. Thank y'all for attending, and thank you for our community stakeholders for being here as well. Before I present our recommended list of quality of life projects, I'd like to preface it with how we got here. The current plans that we're working with, as you know, are Kerrville 2050, the Parks and Recreation Master Plan update, the Aquatics Master Plan, the Singing Wind Park Master Plan, and the River Trail Master Plan. Projects presented are based on either critical infrastructure and maintenance needs or pursuant to master planning and resources available to maintain. And you do have a copy of this presentation at your place. Park improvement priorities are based on need and the focus on reinvesting in existing parks before developing currently undeveloped parks or acquiring new parks. Focus is on addressing maintenance and issues. It is recognized that current staffing levels cannot accommodate additional maintenance responsibilities, and all improvements would need to carefully consider this. Staff and the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board do not recommend projects that require additional ongoing staff, maintenance, and resources unless appropriate resources are allocated. The Parks and Recreation Advisory Board unanimously approved this plan, projects, and priorities at their meeting last week on August 10th. Okay, so 3 main projects have been identified as priority projects. These facilities have critical infrastructure needs that need to be addressed. Otherwise, we potentially face operational changes or potentially even closing some of these facilities as conditions worsen. And these projects are the Callow Theater, the Olympic Pool, and the Scott Shriner Golf Course. Okay, so as with all of our presentations, we include the Kerrville 2050 support and the support from our master plan. I will not read them for you, but they are in the presentation for your review. So Callow Theater is supported through Kerrville 2050. As we presented to you in the past, current conditions at the Callow Theater call for a roof replacement and a complete replacement of the HVAC system over there. We did engage a consultant. We provided an analysis for this, and the report comes back at an estimated cost of about $4 million, give or take. That's the current estimate was about 3.6 a couple of years ago, but we're factoring in an escalation for inflation. Right now, I know you've heard from Jeffrey Brown and his crew in the past have reported to council the issues with the air conditioning. Every time it rains over there, we have leaks we have to address. It's not comfortable in that building, and we're looking at possibly facing operational changes, or if we don't address the facility, it's going to get to the point where we may end up needing to close it. So this is a critical infrastructure need. And Julie can elaborate on this later, but I would like to point out that beginning this year, we've changed the way we've started to budget. We have included asset planning into our budgeting process to ensure that we're adequately planning and budgeting for appropriate facilities and assessments. We put together a budget team this year comprised of many different staff members. We looked at our assets, we looked at our liabilities, and we're starting to plan for the future to address issues such as these. Okay, moving on to the Olympic Pool. Again, it's heavily supported in Kerrville 2050. It's heavily supported in the Parks Master Plan and with our stakeholders. And just a refresher on this for those of you that were not involved in the process or on the current boards, but we did engage in an aquatics feasibility study a couple of years ago to assess the current condition of the pool, and these were the findings. It did go through a very public input process. We allowed the community over a variety of medias to provide their input on what they would like to see as far as improvements. Findings were there is current building code and accessibility issues. This pool was built in 1970. There's nothing about this facility that's ADA accessible because it was built before ADA accessible laws. It does not meet current building code because of the age of the facility. It has maintenance needs. And then a variety of other needs that we've already addressed going forward, such as replastering the pool and fixing a couple of leaks. This pool does have a 16-foot structural leak in the deep end of the pool. It's a leak that we know it's going to continue to surface every couple of years and address, but we are experiencing water loss through it. We are experiencing water loss around the decking of the pool. The plumbing infrastructure is failing, so we need to address that, replace the decking. And as far as the demands for programming, there's a heavy demand for competitive swim, as you heard from our speakers previously, demand for recreation leisure features, and demand for program growth. And so this is the result of the programming and the features that the community voted and would like to see us incorporate into the improvement project. With that came in at a price tag of about $28.8 million, and this was in 2019. So you can imagine those costs have increased since then. We're looking probably at a $33 million project for the entirety of it. We understand that we cannot fund in a project of this size, so we did ask our consultants a couple of months ago, these numbers are from October of last year, to give us a phase scope. What does it look like if we can take a moderate bite at the apple, give us a $5.5, $6 million facility? And what this would give us would be, using the existing shell of the Olympic pool, we would heat the pool, we would replace the decking, address maintenance needs, address building code issues, update it, add bulkheads for competitive swim, new spectator seating and interest, support buildings, locker room, showers, provide air conditioning and other building finishes. And this would give us about, like I said, around a $6 million approximate project. Has the potential to be a year-round facility because it would be heated. We would obviously have to phase that. We would look at, what can we tackle operationally and how do we get to a year-round facility as far as operation and staffing. Staff have been meeting with our stakeholders, which include Schreiner University, C3 Swim, and Kerrville Independent School District. We met with them a couple of weeks ago, and they are still have the priority for a competitive swim facility. So they're still very interested in this complex. They're interested in the project, and they're interested in developing competitive swim, but they do not have capital dollars to put towards this project. Questions on the pool before I move on?
Can you quantify how many people use the pool facilities currently and how that might be increased if it was heated for year-round?
So keep in mind, we're a summer operational facility right now. We open Memorial Day weekend and we close this past weekend. We see about 15,000 or so throughout each summer coming through just for open swim, programming, swim lessons, and then the master swimming level, swimming in the morning and water aerobics. If we open that up to competitive swim, we would have, we also currently have summer swim teams that swim at the facility. C3 swims there as well. This would open it up to, like Lauren spoke to, having the option of doing competitive swim meets. So that would bring in additional spectators and swimmers to the complex, in addition to the university and the school district providing learn to swim programs for the school district and also potentially competitive swim as well. So it could significantly increase the use and open it up to recreation and lap swimming and additional programming for swim lessons. Did that answer your question? I know that was a lot. Okay.
Ashley, how far into the future would this take us? I know that's a magic question, needs a magic answer, but.
So updating the maintenance issues in the code, I would say that would probably give us about a 10 to 15 year lifespan as far as any new codes coming into place, the decking system. It could extend beyond that. It's hard to tell or hard to really say how long it could get us, but with this type of facility, we would definitely get about another decade or two out of it.
Thank you. Other questions?
And with, so we're still talking about option A, and you're talking about phasing in this, kind of what would that phasing program look like?
I was speaking mainly towards operationally.
Oh, okay.
You know, if we do this, we may not be able, you know, day one we open, all of a sudden it's a year-round facility.
Right.
It might be to where, how does this look? Do we have enough staffing? Right now, our challenge is our staffing levels, right? Because we tend to hire high school and college age lifeguards. We're open, minimum age is 15 years up, and that's just the applicants we receive. Through the public input process and through speaking to interested parties throughout the years of this project study, we found that the interest level significantly increases with the potential for a year-round pool because people are interested in year-round part-time work, not just seasonal. So that's our hope, is we would have higher interest for staff.
So how long would it take, do you think, to do all of these? Are you looking at 12 months to get all of this done in option A, or is this
To actually complete the project from day one? I don't have that timeline. I can't speak to that, but I would say probably 9 months to a year, roughly.
So it could happen between your current summer schedule, you know, starting in mid-August and going through.
I think that would be tight. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
want
okay.
to promise anything at this point. We would do our best to work around summer operations, but if it has to impact it to get there,
Right.
that might be an inconvenience we have to face.
Right. Still, it's better than 2 years.
So off-season lap swimming, would that require the city to provide lifeguards?
Yes, it's required per state law and health code. Pool code.
Other questions from anybody?
Okay, moving on to the golf course. So this facility, again, it's a 100-year-old golf course. We celebrate its centennial next year in 2024. The last time it was redesigned was in 1999, so it's been about 25 years roughly. Kerrville 2050 support to renovate the greens as a priority in our parks master plan. And then I'm going to show you the conditions through pictures. So some of you on the council and EIC have already seen some of these photos. So obviously the greens are green right now. So these photos were taken several months ago for our previous presentation. As you can see, we've had some issues there. We have issues with the sand bunkers. The greens are old. Golf greens, they do not have a long lifespan. Their purpose in life is to essentially grow, be pretty, be playable for golf, and then die. They don't have the long-term lifespan of general grass that's a long-term lifetime grass. They have a very short lifespan, and that's their sole purpose. Our sand bunkers, every time it rains, we have to spend a lot of staff time pumping out those sand bunkers, so those need to be reworked, and we would recommend doing that with the greens renovations. These next pictures that I'm showing you now were taken yesterday. So as you can see, the conditions are worsening at the golf course. I would like to point out that we're not unique in this situation. We're in a drought situation, and golf courses all across the state of Texas are dealing with similar issues based strictly alone on the drought. Now ours typically is a little bit worse right now due to the age and condition of the greens, but this is, as you can see, these are not favorable playing conditions, and it's continuing to worsen. Restrooms, we updated one of the restrooms on the course this past year with our operating budget. We do have another restroom that needs to be updated. It's not ADA accessible. It has some issues that we need to address. This is kind of a smaller bite at the apple, but this is what we would include in the project as well. The maintenance shop is old. I would recommend making some improvements there, doing a little bit of remodel work, getting the building installed with conventional HVAC. We'd install some new garage doors. We would do a remodel of the office and break room area because those areas are older. They're not effective as far as workplace. I just found out yesterday that we have a infestation of rats and mice over there that we're working on addressing, but they've done some damage over there, and here are some of the pictures from that. We just have, the roof is just insulation, so there's holes in there, there's safety issues, and there's health issues over there, so we need to address that. The netting system, we have several different netting system poles in place over there, and the majority of them have holes in them. The netting serve a purpose of safety, and if there's holes in them, you know, that risks safety issues over there, so we will plan to upgrade those. So our recommendation is to do a complete renovation of the greens and sand bunkers, remodel the restroom, address the maintenance shop and pave around the maintenance area, update the netting system, evaluate bridges and crossings. There's some bridges that are old that are over there that need to be addressed, and adding a shade structure over the cart area for when staff are working on the carts. Preliminarily, staff is estimating this project being a roughly $4 million. We have engaged a consultant, and the next step would be to bring a resolution to the city council to authorize us to essentially proceed forward with that, and that would allow us to, if this bond were to be approved, be reimbursed, the cost of the consultant fee to be reimbursed through the bond. So we'll be looking to bring that to council coming soon at probably your next meeting. So we would engage this consultant to provide an evaluation and give their professional opinion on the current issues and probable cost estimates for the project. Questions on golf?
Mike, I'm going to ask the same question. If we did this, did all of the things that you're asking, how far into the future would you guesstimate it would take us?
So greens, right now we're living with about 25-year-old greens. So greens can, I mean, they say the lifespan is 12 to 18 years, so we could limp along for another 20 years, but I'd recommend replacement at around 12 to 15 years, depending on the condition at the time. Buildings will last us a while. Cart paths would last us a while. The bridges will last us a while as well. So I think the immediate need is the greens, and that would be the shortest life that we would have.
So Ashley, I have a question. So you mentioned, or Michael, no, I think Ashley mentioned, in the city budget, how you're taking all of the assets now and looking at the lifespan. Is this one of the things that would be considered going forward in the replacement process for future? Okay.
Yes, it is.
Anybody else? Any other questions for her?
I have just
Golfers?
I have a comment. And kind of, I'm going to look back here at Randy on the back row and talk about this. Going out there and seeing it, how beneficial would it be on your staff time and labor time Because those bridges, you can't get your mowers across those things. It's,
All the bridges that were put in 1999, none of our equipment will go across it. It's just for a golf cart or pedestrians. So we have to go around hole number 4 and drive. And basically, we're creating a dirt road through the middle of the course to get to the back of the golf course, the 5 holes on the backside. And it's not good for the equipment, obviously, because it's not smooth and they're banging. But I mean, the cart paths, several of them are cracked. They're narrow. They're 4 foot wide, but they should be at least 5 foot wide. They did that to save money in '99. I mean, it's all the cost, but I mean, like just during the heart of the hills, the cart girl was trying to go across those bridges and caught the cooler and it jerked it off the back of the cart because it's too narrow.
and it's not, there's 3 courses involved in a tournament that was fixing to come up. It's River Hill Country Club, our course, and Lady Bird, formerly known as the James Avery. And they have canceled that tournament this year just due to conditions of all 3 golf courses. So I know it is a moneymaker for the city. It's not a huge moneymaker for the city, but it's something that's been here, and this golf course, just shooting from the hip, I know it's always been rated as one of the top municipal clubs in the state. So thanks for what y'all do over there, Randy. I know it's tough right now.
And our golf course is designed to be cost recovery for operations and maintenance, not for capital projects. So our revenues meet or exceed our operational costs, but for maintenance needs, there's no way that we could meet capital needs with the current revenue stream.
So, Ashley, are your new bridges going to satisfy that need?
Yes, that would be part of the scope, is evaluating the bridges to widen them and replace the ones that need to be replaced. There's several bridges and creek crossings.
Yeah, in all of these, in everything that we're doing when it comes to the CIP, there'll be efficiencies that are created based on just the upgrades. Right? Staff time won't be needed to do X because now that condition has been resolved and they'll be able to move on to other things. So bunkers is a great example. We spend a lot of time just sitting there during a rain, which I would gladly take them spending a ton of time in there right now. But on another, in any other scenario, it would alleviate a lot of their time focused on other issues.
And Ashley, I'm not sure, did you tell us if you had the money today, how long would it take you to do all of this, to redo all the greens and bunkers?
So the first step would be to complete the study and to receive the findings and then plan forward from that. Replacing the greens would be about, how long of a project?
12 to 16 weeks.
12 to 16 weeks.
12 to 16
weeks.
Weeks, okay,
yeah.
Okay.
So there's some operational considerations that we would have to take into account, and we'll bring some recommendations back to you all based on that. So you could do all these things at once, you can do them in phases. There's a lot of things to consider as we work through that process.
The drains on the greens and the sand bunkers, they run together. So that's why when we talked about it, we decided to add the sand bunkers with the greens also, because there's no sense in doing the greens if you're going to tear them up to fix the sand bunkers. So ideally, they'd be done together.
All right, anybody else? Any questions? Good time to ask them if you got them. All right. Okay, Ashley, go ahead.
Thank you. So the 3 projects that we just discussed, the Callow Theater, about $4 million, the Olympic Pool, about $6 million, and then the Scott Shriner Golf Course coming in about $4 million. That would be a total of approximately $14 million. And depending on the level of bond issuance that you're looking to approve, we have several different funding levels, but if there were to be additional funding left over from a bond, say you went to 20 or 25, there's additional other projects that we've identified with the Parks and Recreation Board to potentially look at. We've identified 6 of them. The first would be to complete the downtown extension of the River Trail. Phase 1 is already in progress, so the recommendation would be to go ahead and finish out Phase 2 and complete that, so that segment would be complete. Second priority project would be miscellaneous park improvements. Now, this one would be a variety of improvements throughout a variety of parks. This is replacing playgrounds, adding shade structures, evaluating security cameras. We've been having break-ins lately in the parks, addressing the issues at the Louise Hayes Park fountain. We're looking at about $150,000 maintenance cost right now with the fountain that we know we can't afford. Expanding basketball courts, installing the sports court lighting at the tennis court. We couldn't accomplish that with the project because of the budget. So adding in and addressing any of the current issues that we have in the parks over a variety of parks. Number 3 priority would be the Singing Wind Park improvements. Singing Wind Park was ranked very highly and actually the #1 priority park in the park's master plan. We looked at, what could we do? That master plan came in at about a $5 to $8 million price tag. So what we did with staff and the board is we evaluated all of those ideas and scaled it back to say, what could we do with the smaller bite at the apple projects that wouldn't increase staffing levels and resources. And so we recommend a skate park expansion that's been talked about for over a decade now and it still hasn't happened. Building and restroom improvements, exploring a disc golf course, connectivity throughout the park, dog park improvements, adding a monument sign, and doing park furnishings throughout the park. The 4th priority is Kerrville Shriner Park improvements. This is also ranked highly in the Parks Master Plan. One of the options that we would like to explore is evaluate safe pedestrian crossing for Highway 173. Daily, we see park users riding their bikes or walking from one side of the park to the other, and they're crossing 173. This is a safety issue that we've identified, and we would like to provide a safe pedestrian crossing for folks to get across the highway. We'd look at upgrading our tent site loops to RV loops to generate additional revenue, as RV sites are the most in demand. Bathroom upgrades throughout the park, office and building remodels, road repairs, improvements to the recreation hall and some of our rental facilities, as they're very old facilities and need some updating. That's supposed to be 5 and 6. So 5 would be Louise Hayes Park improvements, looking at adding a sports court, looking at stabilization along the river, improve access along the river, swimmability, and then Guadalupe Park improvements, address playground amenities, evaluate the river access, as this was identified as a potential future river trailhead project.
And did you give us a number for this?
We have preliminary estimates that I can provide you at a later date, but these are just projects that we've identified that, hey, if we have leftover funding or additional funding, this is how we would prioritize these projects.
Ashley, Guadalupe Park is on Guadalupe Street, below the dam?
Correct.
Okay.
Can you give us some of those estimates right now, or is there a reason why we shouldn't get those out?
Well, I think we didn't want to presume well in excess of, we can hit $25 million and just keep going. And Ashley's, if we opened up a checkbook, I suppose we could maybe do all the projects that she wanted if we had 100, of course, right? So we wanted to prioritize that list, and that would be, I think, $25 million will be a number that we could hit with all of those projects in there.
An additional 25 or a total of 25?
Total.
So another 10 million.
Yeah, so Singing Wind, the estimates are between 5 and 8 for everything in there. Playgrounds.
The river trail's 3, so you've already gone past the 10.
3, so there's, yeah.
So the 25 is not a good number.
Well, it's not that, no, I don't mean to say that, here's what it is. We didn't want to make assumptions about.
I understand.
Coming with $50 million worth of, we knew we were gonna come in with excess of what we knew we could ask for.
Well, and to also, to be clear, that was one of the, for the EIC side, that was one of the reasons that we wanted to have a meeting last week, to kind of gauge where EIC felt like they wanted that funding, or where, if the board wanted to consider funding at what level, so that staff could kind of prepare based on the level of comfort that EIC had with that. So that was kind of the whole idea of having a meeting last week.
I think it's important that we put out there that the EIC has not agreed to
That's
issue
right.
bonds. So
That's
this
why I
is-
said if at all.
This is just informational at this
Yeah,
point
no,
in
that's
time.
why I
That's
said,
right.
and to be clear, if at all, and EIC as a board may say that this isn't something that they want to consider. So that was kind of gonna be the preliminary meeting, I guess. So it looks like to me you kind of went with a number that might be
rolling together.
palatable.
Yeah, so we know that we have those three projects that are high on our critical list from a city standpoint. Everything beyond that, we understand our needs, but they always exist for us. We know that we'll always have, parks that are gonna need new playgrounds, and when we can get to them, we get to them, and we try to prioritize those things, but it's a balancing act for us and for the city council to have to figure out what can we afford to do this year. And I know one of the concerns, and one of the discussion topics we've had is how we work through creating an asset replacement funding source for these capital projects in the future, because this is a big ask for EIC. There are a lot of things on this list. And some of the stuff that we discussed were, the pool is not necessarily a revenue generating item. It costs $1 to go to the pool, and that's awesome. But it's not gonna pay for capital upgrades. But there are a couple assets within, the city's portfolio that have the opportunity to have funds associated with them that would be towards future capital needs, right? So you have a user fee at the golf course, you've got user fees at the theater, you've got ways that we can implement to help mitigate these things in addition to funding asset replacement in the future. So we hear it loud and clear that we don't want to end up in this situation again where we're coming with a big ask. We want to, the council's leading up to, and including this council, have been working hard on trying to get that asset replacement schedule in place and truly understaffed. And we're incrementally trying to bring it in higher and higher each year to help that account cover the cost of these big capital expenses. But for now, we're not there yet.
Well, and I appreciate, Ashley, your giving us the picture of what's out there that does need to be taken care of in addition. So may not be the A and B on the list, but it is things that we need to be aware of. So
So do you want us to go ahead and comment on what you just said, Michael, or is this appropriate time?
that's right.
So, and I've had discussions with Michael about this, and it's been even back when I was on council and prior, and I've been banging the drum. This isn't anything new. The city has known that they have maintenance problems that they have decided not to fund for years and years and years and years. You knew the Callow Theater was going bad. And yet the city continues to take on new projects, and it doesn't appear they have the means to take care of what they have. And that to me is a real concern. I hear you're trying to address that, and I'll be interested to hear what Julie has to say about that. But that's my fear, is that until the city makes a conscious decision to either participate in some of these projects or quit acquiring new assets and building new things, that you can't take care of the things that you have. That's just, I am in favor of every one of these projects. Do not get me wrong. We need them. They're good for the city. As a representative of the citizens that have been appointed to the EIC, I hate to see us be the piggy bank. Oh, don't worry about it. EIC will pay for it. That's not the purpose of the EIC. So I kind of want to go on record. The city has to make some tough decisions, whether it's staff or council or the citizens, because I know it's not on the board. I know it doesn't want to be talked about, but these could be funded through a city bond, not an EIC bond. And I know that has negative implications. I know it has tax rate implications. It has bonding capacity implications, but there are other means to help with these other than just the EIC, whether somebody wants to make the tough choices. I just wanted to get that on the record.
Anyone else with some comments?
I'll follow up on Gary's comment, so that you know. So we this year put into place actually a team of staff, and it's not just directors, it's key staff throughout the city. and basically went out and did an inventory. And we said, all right, what do we own? And what's the problem areas, and what do we need to address, whether it's vehicles or equipment or facilities. In fact, we have a facility condition assessment, hopefully we're fixing to award a contract here in the next month to actually have someone come in and evaluate our inventory that we already did. And just like you said, let's get a baseline. Where are we? What are those long-term liabilities out there? And then we did, within the budget this year, actually have a set aside both on water fund and on general fund that will be just a designated line item fund balance builder, if you will, over time, so that we have that facility system replacement, those kind of things set aside. This year, we put 150 or something like that in the general fund. Just as a starting, we've never done it. And so we wanted to get something there as we have a line item that's designated already. When we have excess funds at year end, start looking at where we need to put that futuristically. And then as we sell things, whether it's vehicles, this or that, that it's all going back into asset replacement. So we're really focusing more on including that as part of the budget and not just saying, okay, at year end we have extra money, so this might be a good idea. So we're trying to just make that an intentional area that grows over time to be able to address some of this kind of stuff. Because, and then also, to your point, is addressing things that are already in place. And so adding new things, we also have to add staff, we have to add equipment, we have to add, and so all of those things become another expense and something else that has to go into that replacement plan. So we're looking at all those. It's been a year-long project. We think it's going to be a 3-year-long project by the time we're finished, but we really plan to get a good handle and bring back like a 10-year plan to say, this is the first 10, and this is what it looks like, and this is what we're going to have to do from a budget standpoint. And you're right, tax rates are always sensitive, but unfortunately, that's where a lot of it has to come from. Mm-hmm. So.
All right, anyone else want to weigh in?
Mayor, is it okay for citizen comments? No, I didn't fill anything out on this.
I'm sorry, who's talking?
Russell Nemke, 515 Elm Street.
Yes, we will give you a couple minutes.
It won't take long.
I'm sorry, your name again?
Russell Nemke, 515 Elm Street. I just would like to say, I mean, as a community and a Parks Board member, I've lived in this town my whole life. We've got awesome parks, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot of help from the community. We have a number of foundations here. Like Mr. Cochran said, I mean, he used to probably give me red cards in soccer or something, but I wish I could see more support from the actual community foundations to help maybe even donate money to the parks and help the city a little bit. I think that would be a great thing to do. I just went on like a 2-week national park tour. It was life-changing. So I think people can come here and do that, and I think if we had this community support, not only by the community but with the foundations, I think that would be amazing, and we could help pay for some of these things too, just not by EIC, right? We could do it as a town. And that's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
So are we on item 2 as far as discussion? Because I had, is that?
Well, let's see where we are.
Because I for EIC, my questions would be, I think we have to be at this workshop as a body with some direction to council, or with a shared vision with council to direct staff to bring forward more information. So I guess we have to have the discussion of, do we want to be part of this? And if so, what's our level of comfort? And I know that you put together some sort of scenarios on cash flow. Is that part of item 2? Because, and to Gary or whoever's point, I would think that we as EIC and or council, whoever, would direct staff at this point if we wanted to get some numbers to these additional items so that we had a sense of maybe a landing point if the feeling is that, those want to be considered at all.
So I have one other question, I guess, Michael. So primarily, we're talking these 3 projects is all that is being requested for us to fund at this point in time.
I think we're deciding that.
I think that's the ask today, is to consider a number. Right, so Julie and her team have what is in front of you, so we'll go through a finance discussion. And
I understand that. What I'm asking is there any other city project that you want to tag on to this that has not been discussed by Ashley?
There are, so those are the list of Parks and Rec projects.
I know.
We've had discussions about Heart of the Hills Heritage Center as a participant in this process. There's a request out there for that. We are at a stopping point with HHHC right now. They've reviewed the assessments from the structural engineers on here's what your occupancy can look like on the first floor, here's what your occupancy can look like on the second. But their whole board hasn't had a chance to digest that and go through all their programmatic discussions, what that's going to look like. So their executive director emailed me today and said they were going to need a little bit of time with that. And she was like, well, where does that fall with your discussion with EIC? And I said, I don't know. A lot of parameters involved in that, but that's a project that if it can be utilized in the way that fits within what's allowed within the code, they can have 70 people on the base floor, 55 people, something like that on the second floor. Then that price tag for that project is $2 million over the allotted budget that we have right now, which is $3.25 million. And that one's coming in at a little over 5. So there's a $2 million shortfall. And yes, there is an ask about.
And that's today.
That's right now. Yes, sir.
And a year from now, that'll be 2.5 and then 3.
Julie knows better about inflation rates and the cost of what things are, but yeah, assume that inflation's gonna make everything rise, right? It's never getting cheaper. Each year it's getting more expensive. Hopefully it's starting to flatten. We have those flattening discussions. But like anything, it never gets less expensive.
No, I understand.
In addition, you heard from folks who represent the River Center, voting center, right? So there's 2 components to that. There's the River Center that is the private portion of it, and then there's the park component that is the Granger McDonald Park, that's the city park. And so we've received some cost estimates on that they have put together. So look, it's one unit in terms of flow of it, but one portion of it right now is the city-owned park. And so for the parking, now mind you, this is UGRA approved pavers, which are low impact and, meeting with the design concepts for what they want to see. Landscaping and a boat ramp down there is about $2.2 million for that. And that would give you access to the boating center. That would give you parking space, some landscaping areas, and that would create the boat dock, and it would also create the kind of a boardwalk down the water. It would give handicap access to those folks down there. So those are the 2 outside of Ashley's the list for Parks and Recreation. Priorities, yeah. So one of them, HHHC's, falls under the purview of the library. The Granger McDonald Park would fall under the purview of the Parks Department. Now, one of the discussion points early on with the Upper Guadalupe River Center was a parks and operation maintenance agreement. In essence, would cover the cost of maintaining and operating that park in lieu of the city staff maintaining it. I think that's a path forward that that makes sense for staff. Absent that, we do not have the resources in the budget for maintaining and operating that park right now. So that doesn't exist. Ashley's staff would be, as she stated, she would need additional resources to cover the cost of maintaining it.
So 2 additional questions, one to Ashley. So was that project presented to the Parks Board when y'all prioritized?
No.
So that's new since y'all did your prioritization?
Late last week.
Okay. Second question is, if the EIC decided to go forward with a sales tax revenue bond, it's my understanding that there's a time constraint.
Yes, we're going to talk through all that.
Just curious, can you just, so they have to be started or completed?
95% complete.
So completed
2
within
3 years. 3 years.
Yeah.
So if y'all are amenable to it, we can let Julie go through the finance portion of it. I think that might answer some of the questions.
And while she's going to the podium, I would like to put a plug in for both of these that Michael has recommended here. All of these things we're talking about fall under our 2050 plan. I mean, we can go to the 2050 plan and they're all part of what, we know that. the group with the River Center, they've done a marvelous job in coming up with money, and I think I would love for us to very open-mindedly consider what they're asking. It would, as it was mentioned, it would help with our triathlon. It would also give our disabled vets and kids an opportunity to use use the water and our lake. And our HHHC, our history building, going to be a great thing for our community. I know, as Gary says, that these are new things we're taking on. There's no question about that. But as we look at all of these, I would just ask that we take a look at those along with this and look at them with an open mind. So, Julie, take it away.
I'm going to give you a short brief here, and then I'm going to turn it over to Trina. So as you know, quality of life projects are an allowable use for any EIC fund. So what we're introducing today is the potential of issuance of sales tax revenue bonds. So different from a CO or a GO, there's no property tax component to those at all. So we've been working with Hilltop, who's our financial advisor, on just determination of capacity, because it's a little bit different. We're looking at cash flow forecasting. We're looking at the health of the fund right now, which I will say EIC is very healthy right now on current financials. This kind of bond does require a reserve of which essentially would be 1 year of whatever the max debt service was that would be assigned. And that money still stays within the EIC fund. It can be invested. It just can't be expended. And that would be above what we would keep as a fund balance anyway. So that's not a big enough number that should frighten anyone.
Julie, on the 1 year reserve, is that throughout the life of the loan?
Throughout the life of the loan, that would always be reserved. And we would just create a reserve account and put it in there, but it'd be no different than any of our other special funds. That money can still be invested and considered as part of your overall fund balance. So Trina's been working a good while on EIC cash flow in general, and so we've taken that a step further and just taken different debt scenarios and applied those so that you can see what it is without any issuance of new debt over time. We did plug some perspective, just flat numbers in yellow on the bottom. So go ahead and switch to your first page. I'm gonna let Trina talk through these because she's definitely expert on these graphs right here.
Okay, so this first page is EIC normal. We piggybacked off its annual cash flow we maintain for 5 fiscal year, and kind of build out some moderate sales tax increases and a little bit of interest income. And then they have pretty standard recurring expenditures that happen throughout the year. So there's a little bit of increase on those. And then today, as of what we know, as far as committed projects through July are listed out here also. So this is the existing 10-year cash flow without any new debt that you're looking at. So in the blue bottom line there are your available cash balances for a 10-year span.
And you said moderate, so like 3% built in?
Sales tax, 1%, very
1%.
conservative, and interest income, we don't ever know, that's pretty volatile. But you have your professional services contract with the city and then the KEC.
So we can be very comfortable that we'll hit these numbers, and then probably more than that.
Yes, ma'am. We also, there under the project section, we built in a little plug for future projects. If we were to issue debt and take on some of this new quality of life stuff, we don't want to forget about the others that may come up down the line. So we just did a little plug for those. So that's the existing 10-year cash flow. Your second page there is just the graphic representation of this. So the black line there are your starting cash balances by year plus revenues earned for the year to consume those administrative debt service and projects, the existing expenditures that happen throughout the year. So all the gray in between is going to be your capacity for issuing debt or taking on anything new.
And I'm sorry, Trina, I'm slow. Explain this chart to me again. I apologize.
No problem. So your black line here is going to be your starting cash balance for the year plus any revenues earned for that year.
So
this blue line on the bottom of the first page, basically.
So yeah, that's what I'm looking at. So this shows my ending cash balance of 5.5, and then revenues of, I guess, 4. So to get up to that $9 million, is that what?
Yes, right, correct.
Thank you.
You got that? Okay, so then everything in between is going to be your capacity for issuing any new debt or taking on any new projects. So that's just pretty much the graphic representation of the 10-year cash flow. Okay, so speaking to Hilltop Securities, we gave them some scenarios. If we were to issue $15 million in sales tax revenue bonds, what would that look like? So this is going to take the same 10-year cash flow, add in the yellow line there in the middle. That is what a new annual debt service payment would look like, and adding that on top of your existing debt service that you have. So looking at about $2.2 million per year in debt service total.
Trina, what kind of rate and term is that?
So
Assuming.
just depending on when we close, right now it's looking at a 4.5% interest rate with a 50 basis point cushion, you know, just timing and what there is going on when we close. And Ian usually builds a pretty nice reserve, so the past years we've come in under what she's projected at closing.
But are these bonds 20-year bonds?
This is a 20-year note.
Okay, and so you think it's 4.5%, but you factored in 5 on the projections?
We factored in 4.5.
4.5, okay, thank you.
Do we already have a rating on this?
We don't. We'll have to go through that process. I don't expect it would be anything different than the water revenue S&D we had to do. About the same.
So it looks like we have some bonds that mature in 2030. Do you know what the rate on those bonds is?
2035 would be your last debt payment. I would have to look back.
So I guess it's 31 where the existing debt service drops off about 500,000. I assume that was,
Yes, sir.
part of it was paying, maybe the original River Trail bonds are paid
Yes.
off then?
That's correct.
So do we know what the rate is on those
I
bonds?
want to say, don't quote me, maybe 2.5.
I'm thinking.
At that time.
Substantially
Yes.
less, yeah.
We could potentially roll that one in, but it would cost us more money. Oh, there's prepayment?
Yeah, there's several stipulations on bonds issuances. It's for a definitely bigger conversation, but we can't just roll one into the other. We could do a refunding if rates went down. And at that point, depending on where you are with payoff, then you can, but
Okay.
there's some payoff stipulations. When we sell bonds, because investors are going to want to know that they're good to receive X through their maturity date.
Okay, so to be clear, you're saying, based on what the terms you've given us, for our ending cash balance of 2023 at 5.5 million, on the conservative estimates, would mean that of course does that take into consideration the reserve we're putting in place for one thing? And how much it does?
So you see that line right before the ending cash balance? That would be the largest payment throughout the 20-year note that you would have to hold to the side, 1.1 million as the reserve.
And that would still leave us with a 5.5. So in essence, if we issued $15 million worth of debt, you're saying that throughout this year, we would have a cash flow of, by the end of the year, of 5.5 if other projects came forward.
So nothing will really take place in 23. 24, we will receive 15 million in bond proceeds. That's up there in your revenue line. And then if you follow that down to 24, you'll see some expenditures happening.
I see it now.
Your
Okay.
cash balances will be adjusted.
Gotcha.
So it looks like this would cost EIC 22% of their current revenue stream in new debt service and take our total debt service up to 42% of our current revenue stream for the next
I didn't do a percent,
8
but
years.
I didn't do a percent on the debt service, but I'm sure that's probably right.
Significant, yes. And obviously, we could afford to do this, but it's just going to be further limiting what we can do in annual projects.
Well, if you look at your cash balance. Yeah, if you look at your cash balance, I mean, it's pretty healthy, and you keep in mind that we've already planned some future projects. What they are, we don't know. We just did a plug of $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million, assuming those. And really looking out to 2030, you're still, with this scenario, you're still over $10 million in cash. Depending on what else you decide to issue. And I can tell you, in my experience, when I first came on, a lot of things, we haven't done a lot of projects in the last several years. I mean, COVID being a big factor, and then costs, what they did last year, of course, and just hadn't had a lot of asks. So we built up cash. We didn't have more than about $2.5 million in cash on a regular occurring basis whenever I first came on, and that was pretty standard as what we kept. And so, that's why I said earlier, it's pretty healthy on the cash side.
Yeah, we wanted to build in future projects, so it wasn't just, so, you know, just so y'all could see how much you had at the end of the year. Right.
Is that what this is?
But we do have some relatively big asks that are
Floating
being
around.
kicked around right now, and none of those really are included in here.
I don't think any of them are single-year asks, right? In each case, there's mile markers for projects that come through the door that usually span multiple years. But, yeah, this is the only ask, right?
So to be clear on starting in 24, that little 5 million, that's a plug?
Yes.
That
that's an
yellow
assumption on
kind
the
of-
2-year
Yeah, that's-
expenditure of the
yeah.
bond.
So you're including if we were to spend $5 million in unknown projects in cash going?
On the 15 million, so like if we approved 15 million, that would.
Correct.
That's 5 of those
But I'm just
projects right
meaning,
there.
I'm just meaning,
That's 5 of that 15 million.
oh,
Right, that's
so this
issued.
is the, okay.
Yeah, so-
Okay, so it's not additional projects, it's if, that's the issuance. Okay.
Right, those additional projects are on the road.
Year
that
1,
says
2, and
future
3.
Projects starting in 26. Working.
Starting in 26, okay.
And again, those are just plugs, just to see what it would do to your overall cash.
Future projects, starting in 26, okay.
And the next couple pages, if you want to look at those are the 2 other scenarios that we ran. Same exact concept, just different debt number. So the second one would be at the 20 million, and the third page there would be at 25 million.
The difference in annual debt service, anywhere from 385 to 387,000 per year, in $5 million increments. So if you do 15, or do 20 over the 15, it would be $385,000 difference in payment.
And again, the project funded expenses there is just with the assumption that that would be over a 3-year time period. So they don't have to be equal. We just have to make sure whatever is agreed upon for projects, we're 95% expended within 3 years to do a non-taxable revenue bond. So a lot of the projects that already are somewhat in place and bid, and those are somewhat started, won't be as hard as some of the ones that are unknowns that might be longer period of time, because that will be a problem if we don't expend those.
My guess is you get those 3 done in 3 years.
Those 3 big ones, and even some of those small ones, any of the brand new stuff, I don't know, just don't know where it is in the design and stuff like that.
Yeah, none of those contractors are gonna cross paths, they're all specialties, you know, somebody who does pool repair, somebody who's gonna repair the golf courses, you know, somebody who does that. So, Greg, to your question, it's 2032 before it rolls back off on current debt, so you have $500,000 that'll roll off in 2032, but you'll have a 9-year stretch where it's kind of at its peak with both current debt issuance and potential for this.
For those who are interested, it looks like on the $20 million proposal, that takes us up to about 50% of our current revenue stream allocated to debt service, and the 25 million would be about 56%.
And yet they're still growing.
I do think,
Your cash balance.
I mean, I do think that a 1% annual increase in sales tax is very conservative. So, I mean, I think we'll have more money to spend than that, but I think it's good that we project it like this.
Especially with what it's doing right now.
I was gonna say, since we're flat right now.
We're flat now, but you have to think about 21 and 22 were so big, it's hard to surpass those by any great numbers. So I keep going back to like 1920, so we're 40% over in sales tax what we were in 2019, which is what I'm gonna say was our last normal, before we had big influxes of cash coming into the economy and those kind of things.
And in everything we do, we assume the expenses are high and the revenues are low.
Right.
And we're really hopeful that we're wrong in both cases.
And you included like a 10% on economic development corp, like And that
So they
one-
have a 3-year agreement that says they can increase their budget up to 10% over 3 years, and so.
Yeah, so you just did that, so I
Yeah,
mean, I
that's
think
just
that
an
that's good.
assumption, right, it's just an assumption.
To include that.
They'll renegotiate that in 25.
Anytime you're going out this long, it's a little bit harder to say, so we wanted to be really conservative on the revenue side, because that way we're sure. I'd rather come back and tell you we're better than come back and tell you, yeah, we put in 10% increase in sales tax, it's not gonna happen.
Right. That's good.
I share Gary's thoughts on just capital replacement type things, and it sounds like the city is working on trying to incorporate that more. I think it's important that we have, golf is important to a lot of people, and I think there are other places to play golf, but I think it's important that the city have options that are more readily available than some of the private courses and more affordable. But golf is an expensive activity from no way around it. Maintenance is expensive. Everything about golf is expensive. I guess, have a question for Ashley. So, and I get your point. We've got a lot of different parks in Kerrville, and I'm sure there's lots of different worthy things to do with that. But you made a comment about, and it was not specific. I'd like to ask, because we had a lot of people speak about the Granger McDonald Park, but I think I heard you say that we don't really have the manpower or the resources to be able to take on another park. Were you specifically talking about that project? Because that's the only new park that I think I've heard us speak about.
In general, so we have a few parks that are undeveloped, that's one of them. In general, our staff is at 100% capacity as far as what we can take on operationally. Anything additionally we add, we're gonna need to backfill the staff.
Yeah.
As far as maintenance is concerned. So that's why our priorities are ranked the way they are. I don't disagree that it's a great project and it's gonna be of value. I would just caution that we don't have, if it's set up, if the ask would be, if you're asking me this, if the ask would be, if this were to be built, would the city maintain it? I could tell you right now, my answer would be no. We couldn't maintain it. And I wouldn't want our current facilities to suffer while prioritizing something else. We're trying to protect the current resources that we have.
Right. Is that any different from the new pool complex?
So that would be different. We already have full-time aquatic staff over there as far as maintenance. The only additional resource that we would need over there besides, it would cost more, it would cost to heat the pool, things of those kind of resources, but lifeguarding.
Have you looked to see what it would cost to heat the pool?
We don't have those numbers yet.
I would think it's going to be an
It's gonna be
astounding
expensive,
number.
yeah.
An open air
We're gonna
pool.
need resources of that nature, but I'm specifically, as far as redeveloping things, I'm talking about staff to maintain it.
And would a POMA address that issue?
A what, I'm sorry?
A POMA, a POMA, where I don't know what that stands for.
Basically delegate
Essentially, it
Yeah.
says that they would the River Center, or
Right.
someone would
Would
maintain
make some,
the park.
right.
Could be a completely different scenario. Just depends on what the ask is and what the situation looks like, the scenario looks like.
And it's not the EIC's purview, but city staff needs to think, or council needs to think about that in terms of who sets those standards. Do they set those, or does the city set the standards? It's a big difference. Could be.
It's a great part of town, and it's gonna be, if it pops, when it pops, it's gonna be, there's a lot to offer on that side. And, you all did a study on the River Trail, expanding out to that side, right? And cost estimates on that are not, they're not without their own costs, that's true. The minutes was part of the, at least we were talking about its own area development plan. So there is a ton of pluses. From a staff standpoint, Ashley is certainly makes good points about the issues that we have from a staff standpoint, also maintaining that. But there's ways to mitigate that, for sure. And the ways that have been broached by the members of the board for the Upper Guadalupe River Center. So,
Actually, instead of all good, do you have the figures, the proposal from the Grange McDonald Park that you could share with us, please? The 2.2 or 2.3 million?
Yes.
Could y'all email that to us, please?
Sure.
I haven't
We've
seen
got
it.
that.
Yeah.
We do have that. They've given us that.
So,
Thanks for that, because I haven't seen it.
Yeah, we can share that.
Yeah. So,
I've seen it, I've forgotten it.
I think I have. I haven't seen it. Yeah. I'm questioning, and Lane, I might call you back up if that's all right.
Sure, that's
Just-
what we're here for.
I just have a couple of
hey, Mark,
questions.
can you pull up that PowerPoint?
I've seen the proposal, you presented at Rotary to us, and I am all for it, but the original presentation that I saw showed that everything is gonna be provided. The boat ramp, the boat docks, the landscaping, the parking, the building, the amphitheater, everything out there. Is something changed? And I'm not trying to throw you on the spot, but I am.
No, so the value of this project, when we started with it, was to build the building. The building's probably gonna cost more than we expected. But what's most important about what our organization is there to do is to ignite that lake. And that generates a lot of different things. It generates tax revenue, it generates the activity, it generates the hot tax, a lot of different things there. Primarily where you get most of your bang for your buck, because we're talking about economic improvement, is to get that boat ramp and that frontage completed. Whether or not we're successful or not, the city will benefit greatly by getting this piece done. And that's why we brought it up.
Thank you, sir.
So the portion that was the request is what you can see in brown, green, and kind of dark gray there, the boat ramp, and then the boardwalk adjacent to it. So the total for the parking, which includes landscaping in there, and they have flat work, and Stuart and his team are gonna have to look at that, and we have to bid all these things out, and that's, how our process would work. But the cost estimate on that is 1.7, and then the riverfront boardwalk portions, 300,000, and I think that total number comes out to 2.2 million is the estimate that they proposed to us.
Which is the accessibility. I mean, the boardwalk is what provides accessibility to the lake.
Handicap accessible would be
But
one of the
also there are
accessibilities.
small entrance ways off of that boardwalk into the lake. So that, pedestrians are not having to compete with boaters on the ramp.
The boardwalk is 14 feet wide.
Right.
So it's wide enough so that if you had a kayak, it's hard to get into a kayak. And kayak launches, we don't have those. And a kayak launch would go adjacent to the boardwalk. And then you put the kayak in, and then you slide in, and then you slide out. But the boardwalk is wide enough so that you could have kayaks or boats or whatever it is you're doing and still have the ability to walk by it. So, and it's a natural viewing area for the lake for all the activities. So it's about 200 feet of boardwalk is what that is. And then the staging area for the triathlon, you could see it's not Bermuda, it's something else, but it's more UGRA friendly. But that area up there is staging ground so that when the swimmers come out, they can go to their bikes and then start the ride up to Thompson Drive.
Stuart, I always get in trouble with the staff for any number of reasons, but they always tell me things I have to say. So my PSA is that just a reminder that there's no internal combustion engine boats allowed on the lake there, which is not a suggestion that they're making, but I'm always forced to say these things by the staff.
So it's all kayaks or sculls or whatever?
Kayaks, paddleboards, sailboats. There's a lot of activities. If you can just imagine what they do on Town Lake, because this is our town lake. All the activities you see when you go to Austin in the water there. That's what we could have here.
So can we get a clarification, what is the amount that the city's being asked to foot in this project?
2.2
million is the number I have in front of me.
Can I ask the EIC board, I guess, at this point in the conversation, if there is general interest in issuing debt to support one or multiple projects so that we know that we've got a starting place on that? Just, I'm not asking for an amount, just is there interest generally as consensus to consider moving forward on a debt issuance?
I'm a yes.
Yes.
I'm a maybe.
Yes.
Okay, and then
Did you-
I guess.
Did you get your answer?
Mhm. And then I guess from council, yeah, if there are, with ongoing maintenance, any concerns with what was presented, or if you all are in favor of every project that is being asked of us to consider?
I'd go back to one more thing, and I'm not trying to be the downer on this project on the river. We thought about safety. What if somebody's down there, they're walking along the boardwalk, they're falling in, can't swim, they drown? Have we?
That's a standard thing that's covered through our insurance, so the river trail's no different, right?
Except it's not right on the water in some spots.
And we have bridges
We do
across
have
the
boat
river.
ramps.
We do. It's,
Yeah.
from a safety standpoint, would be no different than we are today.
Can I make a very quick comment? I'm in a unique position in that I'm both on the city council and on the EIC. I'm even a more unique position because I was in city government when the EIC was created. No one on the current city council thinks of the EIC as a piggy bank. No one. And in fact, when it was created, it was presented to the voters as an opportunity to not only fund economic development, but also quality of life.
Sure.
You know what sold the voters? It was the combination of both. And I think even with issuing this debt, we will be able to satisfy both. It's just, please don't characterize this council as thinking of the EIC as a piggy bank. You're an independent board. You do what you want. We think these ideas, these projects are in keeping with the original intent of the EIC. I may be the only old person here that remembers that original intent. But that's how it was sold to the voters. And I'm certainly in support of the sales tax revenue. In addition, we have mentioned the museum, of which I'm very familiar. And that budget includes a maintenance portion. In other words, some of the funds raised are not going to construction. They're going to ongoing maintenance of that facility. And so while that's not a Parks Department project, it's more of a library project, that has been considered in that project.
We have half. Is it 400,000 or 500,000?
It's 400.
Set aside,
Yeah. That was my idea.
And,
Joe, let me just respond. I'm certainly not attacking any of the council, but the perception sometimes can be, we've known about this project for a long time. We've chosen not to address funding this project.
Both of us were on council.
What's that?
Both of us were on council.
Sure. No, I'll take as much blame. I talked about it when I was on council. Why aren't we doing something on this? And we got no traction. So I'm saying that somebody at some point needs to draw the line in the sand and say, you guys help take care of it. We're here to help also. We're not the ultimate funding source.
And Julie has described a plan we're trying to help.
Yeah, and it does, I mean, you've been around long enough to know it's property tax rate's always a sore subject, and.
Sure, nobody wants to increase the tax rate.
Nobody wants to, and right, I mean, I get it, I don't wanna pay more taxes either. But it's kind of, what do you want from a service level standpoint, and what can we maintain as a service level standpoint with what council at the time is willing to do from a.
Sure, and that's,
It's sensitive.
that's the blessing and the curse of the GO bonds, is that it's got to go before the public, and they get to decide what they want. Talk to the county, they just went through that.
Right.
So,
Well, and Gary, in defense of the council and just personally, I don't think that we look upon you as as grandpa there to take care of everything. I don't think that's what our perception of you guys is.
I get that.
And there may be from the public that you've got all kinds of money and why can't you do it? But I think that we have a much better understanding of that. And that we're not looking at you, for you, to you, just to take care of all of our problems. It's got to be, it's got to be us, yes.
Joe said it well. I think that when this began, I don't know what year that was, it was put in place just for this purpose. Is it put in place for the purpose of bettering the community? And this is an opportunity to do that. I hear Gary's point as well. I'm kind of been sitting here listening to everybody. But I believe that you build a beautiful house, you have to take care of the house or it'll fall apart. And that's kind of where we're at right now. The house is falling apart. We got to fix that golf course. That golf course used to be a jewel. And people came from miles and miles around to play that golf course. And I know it's not a moneymaker, but it does intrinsically affect the community. And it also affects the heads and beds, and it affects the golf tournaments that are played there, and all those affect the heads and beds, and all those things all play together. So I think we all kind of are nodding our heads in the same direction. We wish we didn't have to take on this debt to do it, but I think we have to. You know, I think we're in that position. And how much of this can the city take on in the future, and how can we make it better going forward? Of course, we should have that discussion. But right now, we're in a position where we need to do something, and it still looks like our cash situation is going to be manageable, and we still have opportunities to do other projects. Because that's, I think, what all of us on the EIC are afraid of is we saddled the EIC for 20 years with this debt, and future EIC boards look back at this board that we sit on today and say, well, why did y'all do that? You know, we don't want to be in the position to say, well, those guys, those idiots, decided to sign that debt up, and now we don't have any money left to do this other project that we really want to do.
Sure make our meeting shorter, though.
Yeah, I'm sure it would. But there's no question that all of these projects are valid and valuable. And we wish we could afford to do that $28 million aquatic center. That would be fantastic, but we're not San Antonio and we're not Austin. So we have to do what we can do.
And even looking at the 25-year scenario, you know, minus the, you know, potential Lennar project that you guys have, just, you're still at $5.5, $6 million on ending cash. That
John, I haven't heard from you. Do you have any other?
I'm sorry.
Do you have any additional?
No, I'm trying to, as you take it all in, I would like to say first that I really appreciate this meeting being created the way it is. I think this is just a great idea to hash out issues and challenges and opportunities for the community, and I just appreciate that you've done it. I also, others have said it, I am among the many who really admire the city staff we have. We really have an outstanding team of people, Parks and Recreation and the rest of the staff, and the financial staff, and we're well served. And I take comfort in all of this that we're discussing, whatever we ultimately, or whatever the council ultimately decides to do, that it's going to be well managed by this team. I think in terms of the River Center project, I think it's unusual in many ways. One way is that when Ashley mentioned that it was not considered in terms of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, I think the same criteria that Ashley showed us, that what are the criteria that are required that you meet to be considered. This project, by definition, didn't meet that criteria, so it couldn't be considered. So it's sort of outside in another lane, and yet I think certainly I and other members of our board believe that it's worthy of serious consideration by the community. It's unique. It has both economic benefits. It will create economic benefit. It will supercharge the economic activity in the Nimitz Lake area and region. It also will provide recreational opportunities and educational opportunities for our community, and particularly the youth of our community, that simply don't exist in our community today. And it would be available through this center. So we think it's a unique opportunity. We're working hard to garner funds from the private donor community. We're having some success. Following the City Council resolution of support for this project this past January, which we appreciate very much. Several months later, some of you may recall, the Upper Guadalupe River Authority passed a similar resolution of support, and we are in ongoing discussions with them about the ways and means for them to financially contribute and support to the project. And we're quite hopeful that we're going to end up with a partnership package that provides real value and benefit to the project. When we're looking to the city, what we're actually asking for is for the city to consider doing what it considered 4.5 or 5 years ago. When the Granger McDonald Park was gifted to the city, an acre and a half on the water, it was taken off the tax rolls as a gift to the city, and there was very quickly, as you know, a consulting firm hired to come up with 3 or 4 models, development models that range from $500,000 to I think 2.5 or 3 million in 1918 or 2018 or 2019 dollars to do just the things that Lane was talking about a little bit earlier. There simply has been a lag. It's been there. It's not a new idea. It is directly supportive of a number of items in the 2050 plan. And Celeste Hammond has actually done a bit of a review of that and could share them with you if you wanted. So it's, in fact, the idea for this center came out and literally started the day that the 2050 plan was publicly announced in either May or June of 2018. That was the birth of the idea for this center. And we have had, we've talked to many donors and other people in the community who use the word transformative to say that this project would be transformative to the Nimitz region and the river, and to the community of Kerrville. And that's not us saying it, excuse me, that's other people that have looked at it and considered it and are looking at putting money into it. We believe that. We believe it is unique and would be a great asset for the community, and we just hope that as we consider a revenue bond, a sales revenue bond, or other mechanisms, that we can find a way to fund what the city was talking about funding 4.5 years ago. That's all we're asking. It would be, we think a city investment would be synergistic. It would help us with I would be very open and transparent about that. If the city invests in that property and improves it, it will substantially help us and strengthen our case with the private donor community, because we have many donors simply asking us, where's the city? This is going to be a public facility open to the public. Where is the city? And I think that there's an opportunity for the 2.2 million to contribute to that. And that would essentially amount to about 20% of the total project cost. The city in as a partner for approximately that amount. So and again, on behalf of our board, I want to express our appreciation for you considering this. We realize that we're in a separate lane. We don't know how this gets done, but we do appreciate the opportunity and hope we'll have the opportunity for further discussion with you.
Okay,
I want to join Joe in adding my curmudgeon moment. Joe talked about when the EIC was created back in the 90s, and about 12 years ago, I was also on the EIC board, and I was president the year that we approved the initial funding for the river trail. There was opposition at the time to the river trail. It was bold, it was big, and we were borrowing money to do it. But almost in unison, once it opened and people saw what it was and saw what it added to our community, it was a game changer. It changes the way people think about Kerrville, Texas. As a business person in town, I've taken numerous potential employees down to the river trail, down to Louise Hayes Park, show them what a special community it is. And that's always one of the stops that I make when I'm trying to recruit people to move their families here to town. One of my disappointments with the river trail, when it was originally approved, the plan contemplated extending the river trail west to get it onto Nimitz Lake. And while I appreciate the fact that we did what we did within the budget that was approved, and there were circumstances beyond our control that prevented us from getting where we thought we were going to take it. Nimitz Lake is unique. I have the opportunity, I get to look at it every single day out my office window. It's absolutely a beautiful resource for the community. It's just like Nimitz, Tranquility Island and Louise Hayes Park is unique and special with the cypress trees and the shade and the beauty of the water. There are places along the river trail where you just can't see the river, either because of flood debris or because it's just too far away to be able to see. You get onto Nimitz Lake and you really experience Kerrville's recreational lake. No, we can't have internal combustion engines on it, but there's so much more that we can do with it. And I swim in it, and I'm training for triathlons. And the first one I did was 10 years ago. I went out there in a kayak. It was the very first time that I had seen Kerrville from the perspective of being on the water on Nimitz Lake. And it is completely different than going through a drive-through lane at a fried chicken place and looking at the river from that perspective. And we need to get people on the water. We need to get people down by the water, walking around so they can see it. They can see the beautiful hills. It is a unique river trail experience. And since I've been back on, I've advocated to try to get river trail back onto Nimitz Lake. And I know it's expensive. I know we've got some challenges with easements and property owners, but having grown up in the Austin area and had access to the Highland Lakes, the only thing in my 30 years of being here that I wish Kerrville had that it really doesn't is a recreational lake, because I grew up on the lakes and love the lakes, and I feel like there's so much that we can do, so much that adds economic development opportunities in terms of events and things that are going to draw additional people like the triathlon. But this is a true public-private partnership. There's a lot of people, they're spending a lot of time promoting, talking it up, doing private fundraising, doing things to try to make sure that the River Center, if and when it gets built, is a sustainable model that draws in revenue, that doesn't have ongoing maintenance concerns for the city. But this is talking about improvements to the city property, and the River Center board has its hands full trying to raise close to $10 million from purely private sources. It seems like a $2 million ask from EIC and the city is a relatively small ask for the potential that it brings to our community. So I'd love to see it, whether it's in this bond package or whether it's in a separate EIC ask. I think that's a game changer in a bold, similar way to the original River Trail funding.
So I think in the interest of conversation that we've had, we know that without taking any action, which we already said we're not going to do this as a workshop, the consensus was to consider issuing some debt. We know that the 3 projects are going to be in the ballpark of 15 million. So in order to consider additional projects, be it the projects on Ashley's list or the other 2 projects that were brought up, I would say we need to consider whether we want staff to bring back to us an option for 20 million or 25 million, and what your level of comfort as, in general are. Now, again, not taking any action today, but what are we comfortable asking staff to prepare and bring back to us as far as the amount of money that we would be, as a body, willing to consider? And then through conversations, I would guess that once we come to that number in our next meeting, we could consider, beyond the 3 projects that are listed here, what EIC wants to prioritize, be it those 2 projects, one of those 2 projects, or some of the city-related projects that weren't included in the top 3 priorities. Does that seem like what we need to do for you to be able to have our next meeting? Nope.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I want to hear from the board.
Well, we basically have that number though, don't we?
Yeah, so it's, well, yes, but
We need the direction, right?
we need to I guess it would be more of a if we set a number, right, 15, 20, 25, and it's above the 15, then as a body, I guess we would consider what we want on that list based on the debt that we're willing to consider.
Kim, for further discussion purposes, what we could do is bring a resolution as a not to exceed, and then go out and do the work, and, you know, what we end up selling based on your direction could just not exceed that.
So,
But I guess I'm saying,
I'm
They're
running.
separate discussions. So one, so
Right.
from a staff standpoint, right? And, you know, doing both EIC and the city council, right? So these are city projects that the city has to maintain, the city's gonna have to control. We wanted to bring you all together to discuss, you know, what are the best projects to bring forward, right? So we know from a staff standpoint, we brought you those three. I think there's been some discussions about HHHC, there's been a lot of discussions about doing Greater McDonald Park. Ashley has a long list of projects.
Why don't we throw in the remainder of the river trail down to G Street? Why isn't that on the list?
It is.
It is.
It's on the additional list.
It is on that, right?
Okay.
So, other identified. So I think from what we want, I think what staff envisions is a council-directed list based on y'all's group discussion of projects to recommend to EIC.
I'm just thinking that we have 9 minutes left, and the very basic thing that we need to do is decide the level of comfort with the issuance of debt, whether it's 15, 20, 25, or 0. And we're not taking action, we're not saying that we're doing that, but they need a number to start from. I don't know in 9 minutes if we can get to a specific decision on projects that want to be included in that.
Just have them come back to us.
That's what I guess I didn't communicate well, but that's what I was trying to say. If we
Come
can
back to us
say.
with all three, and this is what we get for 15, this is what we can get for 20, this is what we can get for 25, and then we can make a decision on what we feel comfortable.
And that's
If
what
those-
I'd like to
if
see
those
us
give us
do.
the value
Yeah.
back that we feel is worth the debt, then we can make that decision.
Well, we know what, yeah, okay.
I don't know that we can make that decision without
I
seeing
think-
what can really fit into that budget.
15 million is probably.
Cover the three basics.
The three basics, and then, so if you brought us back, basically what we've got here, maybe 20, 25, with what would fall into those projects.
Yeah, that's kind of what.
I'm
And
just
then-
not knowing based on not having a number allocated to Ashley's project lists. I'm not knowing where EIC may fall on that. I mean, I don't know if you want to just keep rank ordering as a group, just saying, okay, we've got 3 to consider, then we've got a 2 million, then a 2.2, and then another list that we would do, or if you want to say, hey, let's look at all of these and figure it out. So that's up to the body. I'm just trying to say, where do we need to get today in the next few minutes so that we have a path forward for our next meeting, which is in less than a week.
Which is on Monday for EIC, and council meets next on Tuesday. So,
But you won't get, EIC won't get anything until after council will be the first to look at it. No, no, that's right, that's right. You will.
There's no ticking clock on this, is there? This doesn't happen by next week or the following week or the following month, does it? This is a big decision. I think this takes multiple.
Yeah.
And the
because, I mean,
golf.
That's beyond a need now.
And the golf schedule with the fall and when they need to do the replacements.
Kind of desperate.
Yeah.
I'm just saying there's no, other than the roof's gonna leak, which it has been leaking for.
I just want to be efficient. I just want it to be efficient as
Too,
far
but
as that.
I don't want us to get in a hurry and say, okay, by next Monday, we have to make a decision.
No, that's not what I'm saying, Gary.
Okay.
What I'm saying is I just want to have enough direction where we have a starting place for next meeting, not even necessarily make a decision.
I'd like to
Do
see-
y'all want Ashley to put numbers, for example, to her projects or no? I mean, if we only say, do we want to see that or do we not
Yes,
want
I
to see
the
that?
shopping list.
Yeah,
That's-
she already had
That's
numbers.
exactly-
I'm not,
so I think for
well, that's not on this power, it's
For
not on this
Singing Winds,
presentation.
we have a whole list of costs associated with it. For other projects, they're gonna be generic numbers, because we're talking about just here, a new playground set here, you know, and that's a $500,000 cost, generally speaking. By next Monday, for a lot of those things, we'll have a hard time getting specifics on those.
Well, because
But
y'all
I
haven't
think
gone out and
generic would
actually
be-
gotten an estimate on it. So I think.
We didn't wanna
that's-
we didn't wanna be presumptive, because
Sure.
we don't know what y'all.
Well, that's fair, and that's what.
I just recently went out for bonds, as y'all know, for the water and wastewater things, and the numbers I gave them for numbers out of our model that we're only about a year old. And some of those are significantly different already. So as Ashley generates numbers with no plans at all, and then y'all pick, hey, this is a $2 million project, the level of effort that it's gonna come in to generate a real number that you can say, I can fund this project for X, is a lot of work, and it takes time.
Okay.
Just an observation, so.
Kim, I'll just express my opinion. At $20 million, we get up close to 50% of our revenue stream. That's, for me, that's a no-fly zone above that. And then I like the three main projects that Ashley presented. I think they need to be done. I don't know any way around it at this point. And I've expressed my support for the Nimitz Lake project and Granger McDonald Park. So that's kind of where I'm sitting right now as we're talking, and probably don't want to throw in any additional projects.
I mean, if we're picking and choosing, I would much rather fund the rest of the river trail down to G Street. It's a project that's been on the books for long periods of time. We've kicked the can on that one. I'd rather see that get completed before we go west or before we do the boat project. So that's me personally.
So if we say $20 million, then future discussions at EIC meetings can give us some direction.
I would like to see, just a little list for the 25 million. I mean, and it doesn't, these don't have to be exact estimates, just, your ballpark,
What can we
this is the shopping list of what it would look like for 20 million, what's on your shopping list, and what's for 25, what additional things could you get?
I'm gonna go back to Greg's comment on the 25, coming kind of from a banker standpoint. You get to 50%, man, we're done. I won't even look at anything at 50%. I'm sure you are the same way. I mean, if we go over 50% on it, it's, I'm not gonna say it can put us in a situation we don't wanna be in, but it gives you a whole lot more chance of getting there, if that makes any sense.
Even though your projections show really significant balance.
Yes, ma'am.
Even with that.
Even with that, it was, looking at numbers and financials on a daily basis and doing things like this, even with the projections like that, I would probably pump that next door to Greg and let him look at it as another banker.
So to that end, these are not without things being able to come back to EIC and City Council as one-off considerations.
Sure.
Right? So as you move forward, we brought you these because these are large ticket items, right? $3 million, $4 million, $6 million. There's no way that EIC or council can take one stab at that from a cash standpoint, but this mechanism can be used for that. We'll have the bandwidth to consider any number of these projects, moving down the road. If you're all excited about them, we'll just make sure to mark it right here and say, oh, no, Gary said we could do this in 5 years as a one-off project.
Kim, I think it would be helpful for EIC in one form or another to do some sort of prioritization of this. It's been referred to as either a shopping list or a wish list. I think we have an obligation to do that.
I kind of felt that's probably part of what we were here to do, since we got both council and EIC together, because if council's not gonna do it, it's not gonna go through EIC. If EIC doesn't wanna do it, vice versa. So I think if we start on the basics, do we all agree that the 3 projects that were first identified need to happen? If yes, then where do we go if we're gonna do anything additional to that? If not, then are there other projects that we need to bring in lieu of the 3 that were originally suggested?
I don't disagree with you. I'm just looking at the time element right now.
I agree with that from Councilmember Garcia.
And we each have individual meetings coming up, just being sensitive to time. Maybe we
Well, I think if
conversations in our
if we've got the projects, we've got the amounts that go with them. I think it's kind of a consensus that probably 15 million is going to be the basis, and then where does each group go from there?
So we could bring y'all what 20 looks like, and we could bring you what 25 looks like. Just so you consider it. If that's amenable to the group. I understand that, once you're over the 50, I get it,
Because we're not making a decision. I think just for
Right.
I think
Just-
for looking at it, it's not a.
And I really, to me, I mean, part of it is we don't know what those costs are, right? Maybe we get lucky, maybe some of them are lower. It's not been our case, anybody's luck lately, but, I think what we as a staff envisioned is here's a number, and we will be as efficient as we can on this, and knowing that here's the next things on this list from our standpoint.
Sure, I mean, the bottom line is if you don't start one of those projects for 2 years, we might be 50% over budget.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we may not be able to do it.
Not
even
even
at that
be able
point.
to use the Keller Theater.
Or
the
So,
pool.
that's the bottom line.
Might be laying in the floor at Keller.
That's right.
I would like,
Yeah, then what do you
since
do?
John brought it up a while ago, I would like to see if UGRA
25.
would do a
I think we should
50%
do that.
partnership on the Nimitz Lake, since they endorsed it. And I'm not saying you're speaking for them, but you said it a while ago, maybe a financial partnership, I think is what you said, but that would be awesome.
Are you talking about on the
On the
McDonald
2
Park?
On the $2.2 million landscaping and boat ramp and parking, yes ma'am, for the River Center, the Granger McDonald Park. But then it goes back to Ashley, because I know that you don't have the staff, you have to follow back up with more staff for it. But if there's an agreement through that as well.
I think there's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean,
But
I
there's
would.
a lot of avenues for
Right.
considerations.
Yeah, and since we can't, and since we aren't really in the situation to make decisions at this time, I mean, I think that, I've heard from some EIC members that it sounds like 20 is definitely a consideration. 25, there's some discomfort, but there's also some interest. So I would think for our next meeting, if we could look at 20 and 25, it's not as far as cash flow, which I've already done and very much appreciate that.
Yes. Good job.
But as far as opportunities within those amounts, priority, yeah.
I think we can.
Is that a general consensus?
And I think we have a general priority and understanding of that, but there's a little fluctuation in that last end of financial possibility.
This also gives us a little bit of time to hear back from the Heart of the Hills Heritage Center board on
What?
review, and, we just discussed that as something they would take to you. So, yeah, I think we know where to go in terms of prioritizing these lists, and we'll bring back 2 sets, basically.
I guess my comment is, and one, it's selfish because I'm not going to be able to attend the next EIC meeting, and neither is Kyle. If there's not a candle, a fuse burning, and would the staff like a little bit more time, and we'll address it in our September meeting?
Well, and you may not have time by their next meeting.
So there's certainly, as far as the aquatics go, as far as, the timelines are basically, golf. Can we get these things done before, let's say, the next Heart of the Hills Heritage Tournament, right? Or not Heart of the Hills.
No, you can't.
There's a lot of H's. Right, and aquatics, can we get these things done, part of these things done before the next time season opens, right? And the roof on the theater, right? So it's as soon as we can get them done practically. We're running on a lot of cylinders right now, that's for sure. So, but I think by EIC on Monday, we can have that. That's not gonna be a challenge.
We basically already have most of that.
We have a lot of it already, right? We have to have some conversations with folks at the voting center. We have to have some conversations with HHHC. Ashley's got to look at, some of those lists, we'll get you the rough costs. Here's what a new playground's going to look like.
I mean, I think it's the stuff beyond the first 3 projects that
That's
we're most
that's
concerned with
right.
learning more about.
Right.
The first 3 are pretty well defined already.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Well, I think we can put a path forward. And I think what we can do is, after EIC's meeting on Monday, we'll have a little bit more of a consensus. And then council meeting on the 22nd might be a little premature.
I think
So maybe the September meeting, having a discussion to then bring back
That'd be better.
a request to EIC for the September meeting. Sounds like the fastest calendar we could put together. And I think we still.
So you're saying there is an immediate concern that this has to be addressed on Monday?
I think it's the prioritization, maybe.
He's
But-
concerned because he can't be there.
Right, I
You've
understand.
got two
I
members.
get, I do
Does the
get that.
prioritization have to happen at the next EIC meeting? And do the other 3 projects that were prioritized as the top 3 have to be on hold until the other projects are prioritized? Or can we all agree that those need to happen, move forward with those, and then whenever y'all are amenable to y'all's schedules and able to do that, then you focus on the others?
And my biggest thing for
I think
Julie is a resolution of
Yeah.
support
Yeah,
that
it
I need
needs to
for
be
the
done.
concept. So that way we can, for the golf especially, we need
Yeah.
to spend some dollars on the consultants to take a look at.
Yeah.
Verify what we've already looked at and give us their professional opinion on it.
I think it needs to be done
Because we
together.
didn't have that funded. And the only way we can get recouped for that expense is if we have that resolution. So that's our first step.
No,
Yeah.
resolution is not, the ordinance to sell the bond. It's just basically permission for us to go out and do the work to prepare for that. So you can make that be not to exceed, I guess, to answer your question in a different way. If you know X, then it could be not to exceed, and you could work out the rest of it before the bond ordinance. But we just need some direction on, what is that not to exceed?
I think, Gary, I might ask y'all we might ask y'all to come in earlier than the regular September meeting. If you all.
I'd be perfectly fine
That's what
with
I was
that.
wondering, if
Do we want to
maybe you
move
could
the,
have.
move our regular meeting?
We
If
can put out a poll
An-
for
an
y'all
extra
to
week?
consider it maybe a little earlier in September.
Have a special
Yeah.
meeting.
Look, I grant, that's being selfish on my part. but
We
I'm
could
passionate about
even
this.
change, we could change our August meeting to later in August.
I don't think
If-
it's
if-
being selfish. I think it's important.
No, it is
I'd
important.
actually.
Could you do the 28th?
I can do the 28th.
Do y'all want to look at moving to a later meeting in August?
So we're scheduled right
I think
now for the 21st.
they all need to be there.
Can
They need to all
Can we
weigh
push that
in.
meeting to the 28th? Would that still?
Kyle, can you come on the 28th?
Well,
Y'all want to, does everybody have a calendar? Can we make a decision on that?
We're all here, so.
28th?
Yes.
Okay, can we do it in the next 5-6 minutes here? or-
28th?
well, this is just EIC.
Yes.
Everybody,
This
I'm
is
seeing
just,
nods, 28, everybody good? Okay, let's move
We
to
haven't
28.
posted any of those things, so.
Well, that'll take care of that problem, that's good. Okay,
Okay.
let's do it.
Thank you very much.
Okay. You said the 28th you're going to do
I would prefer
that?
to have consensus among the entire.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
And if you guys will send out to us the information that we had received this week from, for the voting center,
Yes, sir.
and that would be good. We'll get that out to everybody. So, okay, anything else?
Move we adjourn.
Thank you all. We appreciate your being here, giving up your time, and we are doing what is best for Kerrville.
You want to
So,
adjourn
yes.
your meeting?
So, thank you again, and at
So that's not construction.
1:38, we will adjourn the city council portion.
That there's
1:38, we'll adjourn the EIC.
What's absorbed.
Members and council